Welcome to Session 15, Service Agreement Inquiry. In this course, I will describe how to view a service agreement saved in the MMIS, as well as all the fields on the screen. If you are new to using MMIS, you should first review Sessions 1 through 4. This course uses Chapter 3 of the manual DHS 4625. The screens we will review in the order they will appear are Main Menu, Key Panel, Selection, Detail Screens ASA 1 through ASA 3, and Comments. I will use the F1, F3, F4, and F6 keys. A copy of the Service Agreement Form DHS 3070 is found at the beginning of Chapter 3 in the manual, or on eDocs, to follow along if you wish. For more information, see the field description chart shown in Chapter 301.03 that identifies each field on the MMIS screens ASA 1 through ASA 3. After logging into the system, as explained in Session 2, I select Prior Authorizations on the main menu screen by placing an X on the line as shown here. I use my Control key, and the Key Panel screen appears to identify what action to take and the service agreement to view or change. To view the saved service agreement, I place an I for Inquiry in the Action Code field. Other choices I can use are Add or Change. The Delete and Batch are not available. The Authorization Type section allows viewing medical assistance authorizations, MA home care, waiver, alternative care AC, essential community supports ECS, and Moving Home Minnesota MHM service agreements. For inquiry purposes, this section can be skipped. In Section 1, the authorization is identified by either the document number assigned to the individual document, the person's PMI number, or in the case of MA authorizations, the header provider number of the provider who will be paid. This section has a feature that allows the Service Agreement ASA 1 and ASA 2 screens to be copied onto a new service agreement when in the Add mode. This will be explained more in Session 16. Section 2 is optional and allows you to limit the search by a date range or by a header status, such as A for approved, D for denial, P for pending, T for partially suspended, or S for suspend. I type the PMI number in the recipient ID field and then will press the Control key. Note that I'm not using a real person for this course. The selection screen appears if there are more than one saved authorization. The PA selection screen shows information to help you select the right document. The documents are grouped by authorization type. Type T are the service agreements. The screen shows the service agreement type, document number assigned, provider name and number. This is the header provider shown on the MA authorizations. Header status, start and end date of the service agreement, and major program, which is AC for alternative care, MA for medical assistance, or UN for essential community supports. If the list is longer than what the screen can show, there will be a plus sign on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Use the F7 and F8 keys to scroll on the list. To select a document, place an X on the line like I am doing and press the Control key. This action brings you to the ASA1 screen. The PF key line at the bottom of the page is missing. I use the F1 key and it appears. It shows which PF key can be used when the name of the key is present. Using the F1 key again hides the line. The Service Agreement Form DHS 3070 is divided into 3 sections. The first section, called General Information, shows fields from the ASA1 screen. Notice that the next field is green, signifying that it can be changed. At the top on the right-hand side is the login ID of the person and the date they added the document to MMIS or who made the last change to it. The authorization number is on the next line. The agreement status field identifies if the document is approved, suspended, denied, pended, or partially suspended. The current location and date fields show where the document is located and when it arrived, if it was routed to DHS or another lead agency for review. The agreement start and end dates is the period the service agreement covers and can be as little as 1 day and up to 365 days. The service agreement can begin and end any day of the month. The provider number and name is used to identify the header provider for MA authorizations, so it is blank for these service agreements. The assessment date is used only with chemical health authorizations. The referral provider number is populated with the South Country Alliance Health Plan provider number when the elderly waiver service agreements overlaps with that enrollment period. The total authorized amount field shows the cost of all services authorized that are not in a denied status. The cap amount field is used with the alternative care, elderly waiver, and essential community supports ECS programs. This field is the monthly case mix budget identified on the screening document and multiplied by the number of months in the header period for a total amount that may be spent during the period. The cap amount increases or decreases if the header period is increased or decreased, or a new screening document is entered with a different case mix budget amount. You can view the screening document history by moving the cursor to the next field and pressing the F4 key as I demonstrate now. The selection screen appears for you to select a document. I select the top document, use the Control key, and navigate to the ALT4 screen. See the case mix amount field with the monthly dollar amount. If the CDCS field is a Y, then the CDCS amount will be used for the service agreement. The exit keys F3 or F6 brings me back to the service agreement. For EW, ECS, and AC service agreements, the total authorized amount cannot exceed the cap amount. The RCM cap field is used for the EW and AC programs to limit the mandatory case management costs for persons using the Consumer-Directed Community Supports CDCS option. Some fields on the screen are populated by the recipient subsystem and are not typed in the fields. These are name, sex, age, living arrangement. Code 80 means community and comes from the RLVA screen in the recipient subsystem, and major program. The case manager number and name does not have to match the one shown on the screening document, but it should be the current person assigned to the case. You may enter the service agreement at any time in the change mode to update this field. The county of service, county of residence, and county of financial responsibility fields are automatically added with data on the recipient subsystem for waiver service agreements, and by the fields from the screening document for the AC and ECS service agreements. The rest of the fields on the screen can be ignored. The F4 key can be used on different fields on the screen for navigation to other parts of MMIS. While the cursor is anywhere on the screen, pressing the F4 key will bring you to the recipient subsystem to view eligibility information. The recipient screens were reviewed in Session 5, and I encourage you to view this session to see what screens will help to resolve eligibility edits. The exit keys, F3 or F6, always returns you to the service agreement. Placing the cursor on the case manager provider number and pressing the F4 key will bring you to the provider subsystem. Use the control key once to bring up the PADD screen to identify where the case manager is located. Note the telephone number. The name and phone number will be placed on all letters as a way for the person and providers to contact the case manager with questions or concerns. If this phone number or name is not correct, the person in your agency who has security in the provider subsystem can update it for you. This is usually the person who also completes this screen to obtain the provider number for new staff. I use the exit keys to bring me back to the service agreement. I now use the control key to advance to the ASA2 screen, which contains information shown in the ASA2 Screen Information section of Form DHS 3070. The first field is the PCA complex. This field identifies if the person is eligible for 12 hours or more of PCA services per day. If there are no PCA line items or the CDCS line for T2028, then leave the field blank. If there are PCA line items other than T1019 with modifier UA, which is PCA supervision, or a line for T2028, and the line item begins on or after July 1st, 2018, then this field must be a N or Y. If the field is a Y, then the PCA line item must include modifier TG, and the share field must be a Y. The PCA complex field must not be a Y for the disability waiver programs using extended PCA line items T1019 with modifier UC. Next are the status reason fields. See Chapter 301.14 in the manual for a list of the reason codes that may be placed in the status reason fields. Messages associated with the codes will be placed on all service agreement letters to better explain what action was taken that generated the letter. I can place the cursor on the reason code shown here and use the F4 key to view the message. The exit key brings me back to the service agreement. If you use the reason codes, remember to delete the code the next time you make changes to the service agreement. Otherwise, a message will be placed on the letters again. The Send Recipient Letter field shows if MMIS generated letters will be sent to the person. By placing a Y here, the letters are sent that identifies all services in an approved, pended, and denied status. The name of the service, period of time provided, the provider, and rate per unit is included. Changes to the line items or adding new line items and changing the status from suspend will generate another letter to the person. If you place an N in this field, the person will need an alternative notice that provides this information. The SCAT-TAB number field is used by tribal agencies to identify the tribe that entered the service agreement. This is used as a selection criteria for reports. If you are not associated with the tribe, do not enter information in this field or edits will post. The AC fee fields are mandatory for persons eligible for the alternative care program and generates invoices when a fee must be paid. See Session 18 for more information on how AC fees are determined, the role of the screening document, how to complete these fields, and when to contact DHS for changes. The responsible party fields are mandatory whenever PCA services are authorized. The fields identified if there is a responsible person, if the person lives with the recipient, and their name. The excluded time field is only used for persons eligible for the brain injury, BI, community alternative care, CAC, or Community Access for Disability Inclusion, CADI, or Developmental Disability DD service agreements using the Consumer Directed Community Supports option. It identifies if the person is in an excluded time. The OVR location field is used to route the suspended or partially suspended service agreement to another lead agency or to DHS by placing the 3-digit number here and saving the service agreement. See Session 19 for the process for approving elderly waiver customized living services. Another navigation key is the F5 key. This allows you to view persons or providers not associated with your service agreement. You can view the recipient or provider subsystems for other people without having to log out of the service agreement. See Session 4 for an explanation on how to use this key. Using the Control key again brings me to the ASA3 screen, which is the third section on the form DHS 3070. Each line item represents a service. The lines begin with a blank line for you to type additional text that will be placed on the letters with the line item. This is only mandatory when authorizing specialized supplies and equipment. The procedure code field identifies the service. Some services require one or more modifiers. The revenue, drug, and DANES fields are left blank for waiver, AC, ECS, Moving Home Minnesota service agreements. The order NPI field identifies the physician who made the referral for all home care and extended home care services and needs to be completed for those services except for personal care assistance, PCA. MMIS adds the name of the service on the next line, so it is not necessary to type it in the blank field above. The line's begin and end dates can be any day of the month as long as it is within the header begin and end dates on the ASA1 screen. The requested rate and unit fields are the rate that will be paid to the provider and the number of units needed for the line item period. MMIS then calculates the total amount. The provider number must be added and MMIS shows the provider's name. A Y in the share field indicates that the provider is providing the personal care or private duty nursing service to more than one person at the same time in the same setting. An example is services provided for more than one child in a household or for both the husband and wife. The frequency field is mandatory for PCA services to identify flexible use, restricted, and supervision. The code placed in this field adds a message to the letters. See chapters 301.14, 301.22, 301.23, and 301.24 in the manual DHS 4625 for more information on the use of the share and frequency fields, as well as the messages that are placed on the letters. The approved rate per unit and source fields assures that the requested rate does not exceed the statewide maximum rate for all the ECS, EW, and AC services and most of the disability waiver services. Some services must have a rate that matches the statewide maximum, and this field will check for those services also. The SRC, or source field, shows where the rate came from. Code RQ is allowing your requested rate. Code PP is from the reference subsystem. Code RR is from the rate record. Some services are priced in other areas of MMIS and therefore need to be manually priced, showing MM in this field. When claims pay against a line item, the amount of units and dollars used are identified in the total used units and amounts field. Since it won't be clear which days were paid, you will need to use the claims subsystem to view the individual claims. Each line item starts out with a status of suspend. You may change it to another status of pending, approved, or denied. Lines in a suspended status are not added to the letters. Once again, reason codes to explain what was authorized or changed on the line item can be placed in the reason CD fields. The RFE, known as the Reserve Fund Indicator, and county fields are left blank. The repeat field allows the line item to be copied. The maximum number of line items is 99. 2 lines show per page. Navigation on the line items may be done in 2 ways. When there is a plus sign on the right side of the screen, it indicates there are more than 2 lines. The F7 and F8 keys scrolls back and forth as I show here. Or you can use the line navigation field shown in green. Typing in the line item number and pressing the control key brings me directly to that line. I may type in a large number to get to the end of the lines, or type in 01 to bring me back to the beginning of the lines. The F4 key may be used on the screen by placing the cursor on the procedure code field and pressing the F4 key to view information about the service. The first reference screen shows the modifiers, provider types, and living arrangements that may be included or excluded. A list of provider types are in Chapter 101.06 of the manual DHS 4625. The second screen shows the age range that may use the service. An example is if the line item was child foster care and the person's age was over 18, will cause an edit to post. The third screen shows the programs and begin date that can use this procedure code. The list of program codes are shown in Chapter 301.03 of the manual DHS 4625. A chart explains each of the fields on the service agreement screens. Use the F3 or F6 key to return to the service agreement. The provider number and name fields identify the provider who will be paid. Only the provider number is needed. The name will automatically be added after using the F9 key. Several edits could potentially post against this field based on the information in the provider subsystem. Session 16A focuses on the edits for this field. The last field on the ASA3 screen to use the F4 key is the reason code. I navigate to line 3 by pressing the F8 key. I place the cursor on reason code 827 and press F4. A screen appears showing what message will appear on the letters. I use the exit key to return to the service agreement. If this reason code no longer applies, I would delete it when I make other line item changes, or the message will show on the letters again. Let's take a look at the edit line on the bottom of the screen. 4 edits appear on the edit line. If there are more than 4 edits, the plus sign is shown at the end of the line. If you are on the line item screen, you must move the cursor above the line navigation field in order to use the F7 and F8 keys to navigate back and forth on the edit line. This is not necessary if you are using these keys while on any other screen to view all edits. The first edit shows its title. Placing the cursor on the rest of the edit numbers or status codes and using the F1 key brings up that title as I show here. Using the F4 key instead navigates to a screen with more information as to why the edit posted and how to correct it. While reviewing this text screen, there could be different sections for different authorizations. The exit keys bring you back to the service agreement. The number shown prior to the edit number identifies where the edit problem is located. 00 means the problem is with the entire service agreement or on the first two screens. Other numbers represent the number of the line item, such as edits 889 and 321 are posting on line 3. See Session 16 and 16A on how to review and resolve edits. Using the Control key brings you to the first of 3 comment screens. The DHS comment screen is used for notes and to reply to messages between DHS and the lead agency. It also allows you to provide more information about the need and type of modifications and specialized supplies and equipment. The MMIS manual in Chapter 301.04 gives examples when to use this screen. The screen provides up to 4 rolling screens. You will see a plus sign on the upper right side if more than one screen was used. Bring the cursor to the middle of the screen and use the F8 key to view more information. Use the F7 key to return to the first DHS comment screen. Moving to the provider comment screen shows text that will be placed on all provider letters. If I'm making changes to the line items or adding a new line item, letters will be sent to those providers with the changes, and this text will be included if I do not delete it off the screen before using the PF3 key. Information typed on the recipient comment screen is placed on the person and case manager letters. Once again, if I'm making changes to the line items or adding a new line item, letters will be sent to the person and case manager with the changes, and this text will be included if I do not delete it off the screen before using the F3 key. Note that the Send Recipient Letter field on the ASA2 screen needs to be a Y. There are 2 ways to navigate on these MMIS screens. Using the next field at the top of the screen allows you to enter the name of the screen and move to that screen without using the Control key. If I type in ASA3, I will end up on that screen. If I've gone too far forward, I can type in the previous screen to go backwards. Or I can use the Control key, which advances me to the next screen in the proper order. Now that we are finished, I use the Exit key to leave the service agreement. I am back on the selection screen. The service agreement I selected is now at the top of the list. If I use the F7 key, it shows the entire list. I use the Exit key again. I am now on the key panel screen. I use the Exit key again to arrive at the main menu screen. If I use the Exit key again by mistake and come to the Session Terminated screen, I type in MW00 again and press the Control key to advance back into MMIS. Or, if I am finished, I use the Exit key to go back to the Session Terminated screen and type in Log Off over the sentence and use the Control key to properly log out of MMIS. This concludes our session on service agreement inquiry. To provide comments or questions on this session, go to the Aging training page and complete the survey.